selectors, former All-Ireland winners Liam Harnan and Barry Callahan. With the challenge of Kildare just 10 days away, the reign of Monaghan man Seamus McEnany hangs in the balance.
Extraordinary events in the Royal County this week. Colm Keys, explain to us exactly what has happened over the last few days and indeed what is the latest.
Well, at the ripe old age of 38, Graham Geraghty is again an inter-county footballer, and as the clip said, two of the Meath selectors have departed. Now, whether it was down directly to Graham's return or whether this was a simmering tensions in the background, it seems to be that for the last few months all has not been well in the Meath camp.
So, Colm, are you suggesting tonight that it is not really about Graham Geraghty? This is about a lack of communication between the Meath management?
I would imagine it is the final very big straw in what has been going on behind the scenes for the last couple of months against the background of poor results and tensions between the management. Clearly ideologies and ideas about football have clashed, and it has come to this, that there's obviously issues over consultation about how Graham was brought back. Not so much the fact that he is back, but about how he was brought back and the communication process for that.
So in terms of County Meath, because they've had their sagas over the last number of years, and you're a Meath man, what is the reaction at grassroots in County Meath tonight?
I think last weekend it was shock, first of all, that Graham had returned after 3 years. You must remember his last game was against Limerick in the qualifiers. He's 38 years of age. He hasn't been playing at a very high level of club football. He plays with an intermediate club. So there was shock that they had gone back. They also went back for Darren Fay too, but he declined the last Friday morning. So I think perhaps maybe Liam Harnan and Barry Callahan felt that was sending out the wrong signal. But Seamus McEnany wanted the reaction from somewhere. He needed to inject some impetus into the squad after a poor league campaign and subsequent challenges that didn't go well. So we felt that Graham would give them something, an X factor perhaps.
Enda McNulty, former Armagh footballer and of course performance psychologist. Is it possible for somebody like Graham Geraghty, 38 years of age, to come back into the inter-county scene after 3 years away?
I think it's more than possible. I think it's very, very probable that a fella is still fit to do it. It depends on what he's been doing away from the county scene. Has he been keeping himself in shape in the gym? What sort of lifestyle is he living? Is he making sure he's playing at the highest level for his club? Now, I know his club's obviously only intermediate, but I'd be very surprised if he wasn't capable of doing it physically. Now, whether or not he's still got the timing and whether or not he's still got the experience to cope at that level, that's a different question. I think there's no question that Geraghty's got the talent. Now, 3 years since he's played his highest level game is a different story.
But is Banty's position untenable now?
I don't think so. I think he'll get the support of his players, and that's the most important thing. You might say that he hasn't got the support of the County Board Committee. I think over the next number of months, the most important thing, he has the support of his players. I'd be very surprised if McEnany did not consult with his players before he went ahead with asking back Geraghty or Darren Fay. And maybe, as what Colm has alluded to there, maybe the reason for this was they felt they hadn't enough experience. At the end of the day, you can have all the youth you want, you can have all, let's say, the athleticism you want, but to have experience in the final day, whether it's a Leinster final or whether it's the first round of a championship, is absolutely essential.
But Enda, do you think this is a snub to the players, or is it a psychological boost? Is it saying there isn't enough talent in Meath to go into the 2011 championship?
Well, again, I'd be surprised if they didn't consult with the players. I'd be very surprised if they said to the players, listen, we have a new guy coming in next week and we're not going to ask you whether we think it's a good idea or not. There's a lot of experienced players on the Meath panel at the moment, you know. If you think about Anthony Miles and so on, I'd be very surprised if they never said, Anthony, do you think it's a good idea to bring someone like this in? And they probably didn't want him as a 70-minute player. They probably only want him as a 10-minute player towards the end of a big game to consolidate things, to make sure things are settled down in that stage of the game.
Colm, has this destroyed Meath's prospects of beating Kildare?
Absolutely not, and the comment Ciaran would have made after his match last Sunday night was very apt, I thought. What you think can galvanise you doesn't, and what you don't think galvanises you does. And I think this will have a galvanising effect for Meath. You must remember the players have been working with Paul Grimley essentially and Martin McElkennan, and very, very happy with the programmes that they have laid out and the organisation that has been provided by Seamus McEnany's management. Now, how the team is picked or how they arrive at that is not really their concern 11 days before their next championship game. On the back of a very bad league, Meath have really wanted this game to come fast, and I don't really think it's that big an issue in the dressing room that Graham Geraghty is back. In fact, I think a lot would welcome him back.
And Colm, just before I leave you, in terms of the Meath County Board, they issued a statement. Does it mean that Seamus McEnany has to appoint 2 new selectors and they have to be from Meath?
Yes, they have to be, but that was the green card was played last November. They insisted on 2 Meath selectors. Now, he had Liam Harnan going in the first place, and then he had to add another selector. Now, he struggled to get that selector until Barry Callahan finally arrived into the backroom team at that stage. But he needs to meet selectors. Whether they'll impose it before the Kildare game, there is no timeline. So I would say he will have breathing space.
Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. After the break, the Young Hurler of the Year, and we discuss what happened. Underwent a daunting interrogation in the committee room as we road tested their relationship off the field.
Thank you for being a friend.
Okay, Dotsy first. Answer me this. What's Ryan's most annoying saying?
Probably, no. Or, well. Probably, no. Or, well. Sorry, Tipperary, well.
Be honest now, who is Anthony Daly's pet?
Ryan and Anthony always seem to be having great banter and having a great laugh, and to be honest, half the time I don't know what they'd be talking about. Myself and Dalo, we kind of help each other to translate what the boys are saying, especially Dotsy coming from California.
What size togs does Ryan wear?
38, I think. You know, he'd be known around the panel maybe as having a bit of a big bottom. 34. I think I went for 38 or 40 there, and I think you know the reason why. Hey, pot kettle black.
Ryan, you're in the hot seat. What one item does Dotsy treasure most in the world?
Oh, without doubt, and I think everyone that knows him can vouch for this, it's a rope with a loop at the end of it that he uses to stretch. A rope I bring around with me, and I use for stretching.
The wisest piece of advice Dotsy ever gave you?
He's not that wise, believe it or not. I mean, look at the state of him back there. Like, it's like he's standing to attention for the Queen.
And Dotsy's pre-match superstition is?
Go back to his rope again, tugging at his rope the whole time. Close enough, yeah. I'll give you that one.
Thank you for being a friend.
You're very welcome back to the committee room. The big hurling game of the week, of course, is in Thurles, where All-Ireland champions Tipperary play Cork. One man who should be playing but isn't is the injured Brendan Maher, the 2010 Young Hurler of the Year, and he joins us in the committee room. Brendan, you're very welcome. But first of all, how did this injury happen?
Fairly simple, actually. Just a simple twist of the ankle at home in the air. At the time, I didn't think there was much damage done. I actually walked around on it for 3 days. I didn't get the x-ray done until 3 days later, so it was a big shock to hear that I had actually broken the bone.
Wow, painful to say the least. When exactly will you be back?
Well, I don't have an exact date, to be honest, Marty. I'm kind of working on getting myself right and hope that it doesn't give me any hassle in the future, so whenever I'm right, I'm right.
Tipperary playing Cork in Semple Stadium, Thurles. What will you be doing? What is your plan for Sunday?
Well, I hope to be as involved as I can. I'm going to do the warm-up the same as every other panel member. I'm able for the warm-up, and I'll try and and stay in the team dressing room, be togged out, all of that, and I'll be simply just sitting in the stand with the subs for the game.
How difficult is it for you to be not involved when you see all your teammates and friends out there playing?
Oh, sure, it's heartbreaking. I mean, especially this week now. Last night at training was terrible, to be honest. Standing on the sideline looking at him and watching. Getting ready championship week, there's nowhere else you want to be.
Rumours have come to my ears that you're a bit of a musician.
I don't know about that now.
What do you play?
Sure, I play a bit of traditional music, or I play the banjo and a bit of guitar and try my hand at an old sing-song.
And would traditional Irish music be your favourite?
Well, I'm interested in all types of sport, all types of music. My brothers and my father are all involved in bands, wedding bands, so I've kind of been brought up with music.
I can't believe this, but I've been told that you're a fan of Michael Bublé.
Yeah, I seem to be. No, as I said, I'm interested in all types of music, so that's all I say about that.
Would you go to the Flas and everything with the banjo, I presume? That would be part of your
Yeah,
brief.
I would have.
Well done.
Not in the last few years, I suppose. Hurling has kind of taken over, but when I was younger, from 12 to 15, I would have taken part in flag kios and scores and all of that kind of thing.
Well done, Brendan Maher. Thank you very much indeed. We'll get the committee's view on that game later. But first, as the Munster Championship throws in this weekend, one man is now driving a very different road.
There comes a time in everyone's career that they have to have a look at it, and I did look at mine, and I just don't want to be slowing down, and I made that decision to retire.
What I'm missing is, of course, putting on that water jersey again, but I miss the crack with the lads. I miss being with the lads.
There's a chance for down the man! What a goal! wonderful strike. And it's the Lismore star.
I'm free to be whatever I choose, and I'll sing the blues if I want.
To be honest, it was extremely tough. Like, you know, you go in there after doing a day's work, you go straight to the gym after. I never went home and sit down and had the dinner. I'd go straight to the gym. I always did it. And it was tough going, like, you know, but there are sacrifices I had to make. Come back to now, I can go and come as I please. Like, there's no pressure on me to go out and perform every week. Like, you know, and there is a bit of pressure with your club, obviously, like, you know, but you're not under as much pressure.
It comes to Dan the man. He hits it out, but the ball is in the net. They rejoice around Semple Stadium.
When you come out in Semple Stadium, the feeling's unbelievable, like, you know, and I'll miss that. Of course I miss that. I won't miss people shouting at abuse or anything like that, like, you know, but I miss the crack and I miss the atmosphere of the matches, like.
On the 12th, I suppose, I'm Waterline for the championship. I won't be there this year, like, you know, it's the first time in a long time I won't be there, like, you know, but of course I'm disappointed I won't be talking out, and I won't have to get ready now at all, or usually sit in the middle of the bus on the way back, in the back there with the lads, because I don't Kelly. But he doesn't have me this year, like, you know, so I'd say someone else will slip in there, but no, I'll go up, support him. I'll go to some corner in the field where hopefully no one will see me, like, and I'll just watch the match.
I'd be able to bring it all the matches now, Ciaran.
I get to spend more time with yours. I like going to the matches and everything, but I'll have to go see Morris now.
That's it. Morris is the kingpin now, Daniel's gone. Chloe sees me a lot more than she did when I was gone, like, you know. We often come out here to the brickies and hit the ball off the wall for an hour, like, you know, just to get away and get him interested and keep him interested in hurling. Catch it. I have to practice that. Once so long ago, like, there was people bringing me to under 12 and under 14 matches, like, you know, and it's only fair to put a small bit of time back into the club.
That's my ambition now, is try and win a county with my club and try and give the young fella support, train them, do my best with them underage coming up, like, you know, and hopefully just keep the club going, like, you know, and keep interested in.
That's it. Unlucky, unlucky.
That was your fault.
We know who the boss is in that house anyway. Well done, Chloe. Now we're going to talk about the issues that affect players who retire from the game. Brendan Maher and McNulty are still with us, and also at the committee room table is former Limerick hurler Ciaran Carey. Ciaran, if I can start with you, when you retired in 2004, how difficult was it? How tough was it?
Well, I suppose, Marty, it really depends on the individual. If he comes out and possibly makes an announcement, there's a possibility. I think Ambrose O'Donovan from Carey, he had an article in the Sunday World, I think in the mid-90s, and he reckoned actually any player who retires from inter-county hurling or football would need a bit of counselling. But I suppose I wouldn't be the ideal candidate, I'd say, to give a full factual picture on it, because I'm actually still playing with my club, Patrickswell. Even though it was a massive move to step away from inter-county commitment, I was extremely lucky that I was still hurling with my club, and I was still playing up to last year. But if I was to retire totally from the game, including inter-county hurling and club hurling, obviously there's a massive void there, and it would have to be filled. So it's a life-changing experience, really. So,
and in terms of now, 7 years later, what do you do? How do you fill in your time?
Well, as I said, I was extremely lucky that I'm still involved with my club. And without a doubt, when you kind of slip away from the inter-county scene, as I did, I don't think I came out with any major retirement news. But without a doubt, you miss it. You know, a lot of players would say they miss the roar of the crowd, they miss Thurles, Croke Park, the camaraderie between players. But I suppose if there's anything that I actually really miss from inter-county hurling, would be the pressure to perform.
Really,
yeah, that's one aspect of the game that I really miss, because I always loved the challenge, and I always actually put myself under pressure to perform.
And Ciaran, in terms of your job, what do you do now?
Well, I'm extremely lucky at the moment. I'm actually started college about a year and a half ago, and Lark Corbett and a few of the Tipperary guys were on the late a few weeks ago speaking about unemployment and how tough they were finding it. And I was in the same situation myself for about a year and a half, and I found it very difficult. So I went out looking for a bit of work, a bit of voluntary work. So I went back to Coonverra in Broree, And lo and behold, I met Sister Agnes, and she gave me voluntary work, and as a result she asked me would I be interested in the counselling course, and I have a year and a half of that under my belt. And I also work in a homeless hostel in Limerick City, a low threshold homeless hostel, McGarry House.
Interesting. And in terms of your profession, in terms of being a psychologist and preparing people, not alone inside sport but outside sport, to retire, what should people do? What should be done? Or is anything being done at the moment?
I think that's the key. It's preparing them for it. If you look at what the GPA are doing at the moment, they're putting an awful lot of structures in place from the psychological point of view, from a career development point of view, in terms of developing our athletes across the board. So there's a lot being done by the GPA at the moment. The unfortunate thing is, Marty, I don't think enough of the players are grabbing hold of that opportunity. The support structures in place now for GAA is much more extensive than it was 10, 15 years ago. And the GPA is really, really inspired to producing a world-class programme in that regard. So now if players are thinking about retiring or maybe are forced to retire, they can phone or contact the GPA and they will provide courses or training opportunities, or perhaps even put them on a sales programme if they're into sales, or put them on a communications programme to prepare them for interview, or let's say even deal with psychological counselling. And they have the counsellors in place now in the GPA. In fact, I think they've got 2 or 3 involved with each province, so that if a player is going through a difficult time, all they have to do is phone in and say, listen, Desi Ford in the GPA, I want to talk to somebody, or Sean Potts who's in the office in there as well, or Siobhan Early, and say, listen, I'm struggling. Whereas I think 10 years ago that support structure wasn't there, and not only that, but nobody asked.
But what sort of problems do GA people encounter?
Well, they encounter severe problems in that, first of all, they've got a void, as Ciaran mentioned. What do you do with that time? They encounter self-esteem problems. They encounter psychological problems in that they were so much committed to football, and then when the ball is over, there's nothing else to fill that void. Some of them encounter really big physical problems, whether it's a knee injury or an ankle injury. My own brother Justin actually had a heart issue, and that's one of the reasons why he had to quit, and that was ended for him overnight. So lots of players suffer different problems, different issues, and what the GPA are doing is making sure there's support structure in place to deal with any of those issues at any particular time.
From your own playing experience, I mean, you win in All-Ireland with Armagh, there's a huge buzz, huge excitement. How was it for you when you had to retire?
Well, I would say I'm, I suppose, a different case, because for the last 3 years, Marty, I played 0 minutes in Championship or League football. I would say I'm pretty unique in that regard. So I hadn't retired this year for the first time. Sitting in a changing room and sitting on a subs bench for 3 years, I'd almost say I retired 3 years ago. So it has been difficult, hugely frustrating, absolutely frustrating. I can't say it hasn't been. However, I've used it almost as an opportunity, because now when I'm working with athletes who are retiring or thinking about retiring, I can empathise with them. I can say to them, well, I know how it feels. I know what it's like for somebody to City when you're not in the team anymore. I know what it's like when the supporters don't know you anymore, when little kids in Armagh don't know your name anymore. I know what that's like.
Well, Brendan Maher is only starting off really in his career, but now that you've had this injury for a number of months, have you thought about perhaps the long-term plan for Brendan Maher?
Well, I don't think about it that much. As I said, I'm only a little nipper yet. But no, as I said, you see the likes of Ian Dowling there with Munster Rugby, a career-ending injury, and I suppose it did enter my head, like, what would I do if I did get injured? And there's the psychology side of things. I mean, I depend greatly on that while playing, so I can't imagine how much I would have to depend on it if I wasn't playing. So definitely would. It does kind of creep into your head a bit.
Okay, well, it sounds like an issue we'll be hearing more about in the future. Of course, this weekend's meeting of Cork and Tipperary is a mouth-watering clash to start off the Munster Hurling Championship. To whet your appetite, here's a reminder of the feast they served up. Yes, indeed, it promises to be a great game in Semple Stadium in Thurles. Ciaran, Carey, Cork or Tipperary, who will win and why?
It's extremely hard to call, actually, Marty, when you size up Tipperary's form and Cork's form during the league campaign. Obviously, Tipperary would be roaring favourites for obvious reasons. They're All-Ireland champions. But I actually think this particular game between Tip and Cork and down through the years has its own identity, and there's very little said about Cork. I'd fancy Tipperary, but I think Cork would give them bags of it.
So, in one word, Tip?
Tip.
Brendan Maher, big game, of course, in Croke Park. The game being switched from Parnell Park to Croke Park, Dublin against Offaly. Who do you fancy there?
I suppose, well, obviously the momentum was with Dublin after their league final success, but saying that, Offaly's record in championship would speak for itself. They're never easily beaten. I think they proved that against ourselves last year and against Galway. But if I was to pick a team, I suppose I would have to go with Dublin, considering their league form.
Brendan, why do you think Ryan O'Dwyer never quite hit the same top form for Tipperary as he's obviously doing for Dublin?
Well, I think Ciaran mentioned it there. It's individually you have to that thing happens. I can't speak for Ryan. I'm sure he knows what he's doing different now, but obviously his form is brilliant with Dublin, and I wish him the best. I hope it continues.
And from a Dublin perspective, from Anthony Daly's perspective as manager, the psychological aspect, Dublin are no longer chasing the pack. They are the Allianz League champions. What about the psychological preparation for this game?
I think Daly's been in the block long enough now to know what to do and when to do it. I think he'll keep really minimal exposure to the media and make sure they don't listen to or watch what's going on in the media, and that they set their mindset rather than their fans or the media setting their mindset. That's what he'll do.
Very briefly, we're going a lot of us are going up to Armagh against Down. There's tremendous rivalry. You talk about Cork Kerry. Have Armagh any chance?
I must say I missed that game for a start. I definitely missed that part of playing football, obviously. Have Armagh any chance? They've got a very good chance. Down go into this game as big time favourites. I would not be surprised if Armagh come out of this game with a 1-point victory.
And what's the grassroots with all your teammates and indeed friends and relations, everything else? Is there a feeling that Armagh can actually win this?
I think there is, absolutely. Armagh have got very good players. They're very talented players throughout the whole pitch. I think they may be lacking a little bit of experience and possibly some leadership, but I would say Armagh have the players to beat Down, because Down aren't any world beaters either.
Okay, so Armagh to win?
Armagh to win by a point.
Okay, we look forward to that. Okay, well, it's going to be a busy weekend.